Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of DivaDance, Jami Stigliano. Jami, how are you today?
I'm so excited to chat with you. This is going to be so fun. Thank you.
It is going to be fun. I am so glad to finally have you on the show and talk about DivaDance. So people are probably thinking, DivaDance, okay, this is probably for like little girls and stuff, right? Not so much.
That's right. We are for former little girls. We are for adults who love to dance, who want to keep dancing their life. And I started the concept after I went and took a class as an adult, looking for fun, looking for community, looking for a fun cardio fitness option. And there were no dance classes in New York City at that time that were intended for folks like me, regular people. It was all for, Beyonce backup dancer bound, Broadway bound beauties, these tall, slim, perfect women. And I was just a normal gal who wanted to dance to fun music and find some friends. So that's what I created DivaDance for. So the former little girls, but not current ones.
That is beautiful. I love the concept. I don't know anybody else that's doing anything like this in franchising.
It's actually really true because a lot of the folks who inquire about franchising with us, they actually were looking for classes like this in their area, saw that they didn't exist, and that's why they reached out. So we know that there's a need, and we're just excited to keep growing.
Sweet. So I see that your concept was born way back in 2003. Great year to start a business. That's when I started I9, by the way, in 03. So it's near and dear to my heart.
The time goes by really quick. I mean, I just started by teaching my own classes. I walked out of a studio in New York, and on the corner of 57th and Broadway, I know you're a New York City guy yourself, so you'll appreciate. On the corner of, 57th and Broadway, I made the decision I was going to teach my own classes. And, in New York City, there's a lot of really great spaces that you can rent. I wasn't looking to open my own physical studio. Financially, it wasn't accessible, but I had a real career. I had a job. I was working in the music industry within the Sony music system, and so I didn't want to rent a lease. I didn't want to lease a space. I certainly didn't want to purchase real estate at that time. So I just started renting a studio and then just never stopped. From 2003 till now, I've just never stopped. And that's always, a piece of advice I give entrepreneurs, like just keep going.
Just keep going. I even noticed like in franchising, some of the successful franchisees were folks that struggled. And the only reason why they survived and had a thriving business is that they hung around long enough. They didn't quit too soon.
Oh, it's so true. When folks talk to me about, what does it take to be a good franchisee, is the very first thing after following a system, it's consistency, and that's something that I feel really proud with. I look back, I'm like, man, it has been 20 years since I started this. And obviously DivaDance now is certainly not, they're not the same, that I've evolved, and I didn't even start out. It was never my plan to franchise. It was never I didn't even have a brand. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything. But I just stayed consistent. So I agree with you. Sometimes if you just hang in there and you keep going, something good's bound to come down your path.
Yeah. In fact, I've seen some franchisees who I thought were going to be super successful. They had the brains, they seemed to have the heart, but they did not persevere and they quit. Whereas they should have been more successful than some other franchise owners that, quite honestly, when they came into the system, I didn't think they were going to be great, and they end up being really good because they hung around. And there's something to be said about perseverance for sure.
Yes. Well, real quick, last thing on that is that I give all my new franchisees a picture. You've probably seen this before, where it has the guy mining in the coal mine, and he's digging and he's digging and he's digging, and then he gives up. And then, like, if he had just hit it one more time on the other side of that wall are those diamonds. So I actually had an illustrator create a version of that for DivaDance that shows oh, here's all the things that you want in your life, and if you just keep hitting, you're gonna find the diamonds. So I'm actually funny that you mentioned that, because I don't always talk about us kind of sharing that sort of sentiment and that visualization of that, but that's a big theme for us here for sure.
I think that is a great theme to share with franchise owners when they're coming into training, when they're, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's the honeymoon period, and they only see all of, they have the stars and moon in mind of how big is big for them, but to set the kind of precedence that you're going to be working hard and you're going to get into the grind. And I think preparing people for the grind from the very beginning, there's something to be said about that. And I don't think enough people do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We talk about that valley of despair that they talk about in the entrepreneur journey.
Yeah.
And it's real, and so we spend a lot of time, I don't shy away from it. I tell them, you're going to have days where you want to quit, you want to give up, you're mad at me. I always tell them, there's going to be a day where you're mad at me. You're going to be mad at Jami. Yes. for bringing you into this thing, but the good days will definitely outweigh the bad. So absolutely, I love that. I love that philosophy.
It's true. All right, let's go back before franchising. We started talking about you when you opened your first DivaDance. What led you though to deciding, hey, I'm going to franchise this concept? Was it like a defining moment that you just had this aha and I have to do it? But what led you to it?
So you're going to love this. And I think a lot of founders will appreciate that intersection where we make the decision, like that moment. And so for me, it was, I knew I needed to exit the music business. I was tired of making rappers and pop stars rich and famous, which was really what my job was.
Wow.
It really was.
That could be awesome a podcast episode in itself.
Totally. I mean, listen, I got some fun stories. It was an amazing time. This is before I was, focused on my family. I now have 2 daughters, and it's just a different era. But at the end of the day, music is awesome and it's important, but my direct contribution to helping add value to people's lives was very hard to really kind of get my hands around. Like, it was a squiggly line to adding value. With DivaDance, I had this hobby business, this side thing that had a direct line to helping people, and it made me money. It was really, again, without a whole lot of intention behind it or a true business model, I knew I had something people wanted and they were willing to pay me for. And so, there was a moment where I was, I was at that crossroads of looking to exit the music business. And I looked at this little thing, this little dance business, I jokingly refer to it now as this thing I had. And I said, well, I don't really know what I want to do next, but what if I just kind of gave this my full energy, as they say, instead of my half-ass, what if I gave this my full ass? What if I went for it, right? And what if I went for it? And in that process, I did a lot of research, and I actually came across someone who was willing to do a mentorship phone call for me. There's a lot of cool platforms out there that you can, get some mentorship. This is before I knew anybody in franchising. And I explained to him my model. A guy named Dan Mesritsky. He has a fitness brand based in Canada. I knew nothing about franchising at all. And I did a little mentorship call with him, and I told him, a few sentences about my business, and he goes, you really should franchise. And it never occurred to me. I knew I wanted to bring this to other places, but in my mind, franchising was not accessible financially. And because I didn't know anything about it, I also assumed it was just not accessible as a business option. And so, with him just planting that seed, I took that and ran, and, through a course of some relationships through my family and, doing some research and some cold calling, we started down the path of turning this into a franchise system. So I'm so grateful for Dan and that call, that kind of serendipitous moment that I happened to talk to him, and that he even planted that seed and made it accessible.
Around what year was that?
That was 2015. 2015, when I made the I love the phrase, I have decided, because we all spend a lot of time kind of well, I might, and I kind of,
exactly.
And I can very, very clearly pinpoint September of 2015 when I made the decision that I was exiting the music business. And so at that point, there was no hemming and hawing. I was doing something different. And that's when I, said, well, I've got this little thing. Let me see what that could be. And then I just haven't turned back. Turns out, full ass works.
I guess on that day, and I don't know if you remember exactly what happened, but you obviously hit an emotional threshold where not another day was going to go by without you moving forward and franchising this. I wonder if it had something to do with either A, you had enough in the music industry one day, just the boss looked at you the wrong way, or you felt unappreciated or unfulfilled, or maybe it was that you thought, if I don't do this, I'm not going to live to my potential. And I wonder if it was one of those two things.
It was really both. You're so right. And I don't think I've ever fully articulated this. And so I'm glad you asked, but it was both. I was exiting, I was doing artist management at the time. And artist management, two things on this. One, it's similar to being in a franchisee relationship. It is, because when you're managing artists in the music business, you can fire each other, but like you kind of can't. And like, you think you know more than I do, but like I actually know a lot, and like, but we need each other to make this work. And like the dynamic, like that muscle, like is very similar to a franchisee relationship. Now my franchisees are way better than any artist I ever worked with, but it's a similar muscle, And so I was getting out of a management relationship with an artist that just that put the definitive decision of like, this is not how I want to show up in the world.
Oh.
It was a professional, it was a female artist. It was just a woman that like just did not bring out the best in me as an executive. She was just it was not a positive relationship, and the work I was doing in that campaign and with her career, I knew it wasn't my best of how I wanted to show up in the world. And when I started researching franchising, I knew it would bring out the best in me. I could help bring out the best in others. And I had this amazing concept that I know changes lives, that I love to do every day, that I could help other people do that. It was a no-brainer. Once you really start taking the inventory, it becomes a no-brainer. So once you made that decision, it was very easy. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do it from a capital perspective and from a, skill set perspective, but I had made the decision.
You had your why, you know what? You just have to figure out the how. The how is the easy part.
How is easy. The how is so easy. I love that. A strong why can endure any how. And the how is easy. I'll bet on me any day with a how. I'll figure it out.
There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was, I did, when you ask, like, do you remember that moment? I'm like, I very clearly remember the moment when I made that decision. So, and I'm so glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. That's what holds people back though, when they get caught up in how. Because our brain, goes to, well, how am I going to do this? And then the fear creeps in and the doubt creeps into, well, maybe I can't do this. And you just have to sort of put your blinders on.
Listen, confidence, as you can see from my background, that's one of our core values here at DivaDance. It's actually like, it has been the fuel in my tank of life, honestly, is confidence. And I'm very grateful to my mom and dad for instilling that. I mean, my mom and dad really said, you can do anything. Like, they just from a very young age really instilled almost a dangerous amount of self-confidence. And but then they also gave me the tools and resources to back it up. I'm very grateful. I had access to classes and workshops and leadership development, and I got to be in a sorority in college, and I had a lot of privilege and access to things because my parents invested in me. My dad always made the joke, I'm protecting my investment. Oh. He invested in me and coached me and guided me, and so I feel very grateful for that. But yeah, that confidence is I had confidence that I could figure it out. Even if I didn't know and I didn't have the immediate resources or capital, I knew I could figure it out.
Sweet. Well, Jami, there was obviously something inside of you, because we hear all the time about you can get any parent that can give an empty vote of confidence. Oh, you're going to be great. But if the child doesn't feel like they're great, then they're not going to achieve. So there was still something inside of you that you did take. You didn't take anything for granted, it sounds like, and that you were willing to put in the hard work and make it happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was fun. It was a new challenge, getting into franchising. And franchising is such an awesome industry. And for anybody listening to this, hopefully they're obviously they're associated with franchising in some way. And you hear that a lot, what a great industry we're in. But it's really true, and as I came out of the music business, that arguably is not a great industry. Like, it's got a lot of, it could be so great, but there's just, franchising is just such an awesome business model. And, to be able to help people financially, there's so much upside for everyone involved, just, value adding and just the relationship. So it's been, I'm so glad that I was able to kind of, find my way and find those resources and pull it off.
You sure did. So just to share with the audience some of the numbers, I've got 38 franchise locations that are open, plus you've got 4 company owned, and you're in 10 states, plus Mexico City. That's amazing. Because you've only franchised since 2017. How'd you find these franchisees? How'd you find the first dozen?
They really found us. These are folks looking for a class like we offer, realizing it's not in their city. And, we invested in SEO from day one. Day one, I remember having to write that check for an SEO agency every month. And I always wanted to kill it. I was like, I can't, this $1,000 a month. I
might as well just burn it.
And now it's obviously we invest way more. It gets more and more and more. And obviously the future of SEO we'll see with AI and
sure.
social media, all that good stuff. But we always invested in SEO because I knew if people were looking for something like us, if I could help them find me, we would be a match. And so our very first few absolutely found us that way. And then since then, 80% of my owners are what I call community ascension. Like they were clients, they were members, they were an instructor, a staff member, and either they, purchased a territory near where they were already part of the community, or they relocated. There wasn't DivaDance there. I mean, my Phoenix story is beautiful because my Phoenix, one of my very first Phoenix area owner was a diehard client here in Austin, where our headquarters is. She relocated there for her husband's job, was devastated that DivaDance would have to not be part of her life.
Aww.
She became a franchise owner. And so that has really, we spent a lot of time like with community ascension and, telling the story of franchise ownership and, kind of celebritizing my owners. I want folks within the DivaDance community to see how cool it is to be a franchise owner.
That's
and
brilliant.
See what that's about. So, 80% now are really from within. We've never invested in kind of Fran Dev advertising. We're just now considering, starting to get into the broker system, but it really, honestly, Google, people finding us when they were looking for us, that was critical in the early days.
That's amazing. Your concept is unique in a field or in an industry of among franchises where there's a lot of that are a dime a dozen that are they're very, very similar. But with that uniqueness comes unique challenges, I would imagine, for you guys. Give me an example of what's a unique challenge that your franchisees face and how do you help them overcome it?
Sure. Well, we're not people don't know who we are. Obviously I live in the DivaDance bubble and I'm like, everybody knows who we are, but they don't, And so, certainly the closest thing to compare us to from a community perspective is, the Jazzercise brand, which I'm always obsessed with. I've studied the brand religiously. The incredible founder there, she built something that became a beloved lifetime brand that has become a lifetime sport for folks who are involved in that brand. So I love the community aspect of it is similar to Jazzercise, but the actual experience, it's real choreography. So our biggest challenge that we faced is people don't totally get what we do. They understand what dancing is, but they don't totally get what we do. So we've had to really tell that story. And when people don't know who you are and couple that with my franchisees don't have $50,000 a month to spend on advertising.
Sure.
There's small business. We try to keep it a lower investment, which we'll talk about. But, so we have big challenges in that. But it's funny, my advisory board, a woman on my advisory board said a few weeks ago, she said, y'all are just one Oprah moment away from being a household name. And that got me really pumped up. That's really where we're at. Like if we just have like one moment, one or a series of small things that happen for us, we know we'll have that household name. And then, obviously that changes a lot of things. But that's the biggest challenge is, we're not just like, oh, we're a massage concept. Oh, we're a wax concept.
Sure.
We're a pet concept. So that makes it challenging. But the good news is that people know and love dance. So we just have to educate a little bit.
Sweet. What would you say are, for your franchise owner, what are some of the traits of the most successful franchise owners that you have?
Well, they got to build a culture. We're so community is my second value up there on the wall.
Yeah.
And my franchise owners have to not just build a great client community, but their staff, because that's who are in the classes, they're on the front lines, they're building those relationships. So my most successful owners know how to build a strong culture, and they love people, and they really care about relationship building. And so we give them a lot of tools for that. We definitely give them tools on like how to handle, how to have difficult conversations, or, here's some other ways you can motivate your team and build culture within your team. But that's really my most successful owners, other than being consistent, as I mentioned earlier, and following the system. It's that culture piece for sure.
Well, since community is so important to you, as a fellow founder, we're always handling suggestions and feedback coming from franchisees. At the same time, I'll say some of the best ideas I got were from my franchise owners. Was there anything that you could share, maybe a time where a franchisee has made a significant impact or change in how or what you guys do?
Oh yeah, I love their feedback. I love it, and I want it. So I try to proactively seek it versus just them feeling like they're always, reactively complaining about something or
Sure.
frustrated about something, which is pretty rare. I mean, frankly. But we do it twice a year. I do an assessment. I send them out. Here are all the tools that we have for you. How you like these? Worthless. I love it. Don't know what that is,
I
so
love
we
it.
send out a twice a year assessment, and so that I can kind of keep a pulse on that. But they make really good recommendations and they ideas all the time. It's typically about things that we give them in their especially in the instructor process, like tools and resources we give for their instructors to make classes great. And then even just like other, they'll give us an idea of like, we'd like to do more leadership development or professional development for their staff members. And so we create really neat, we're not overreaching into telling their people how to do their job, but we're certainly making the DivaDance experience valuable so that their staff members want to stick around and want to be part of it. So, you know, I love hearing from my owners all the time. And you know what? Recently, you'll love this too. Recently, in my most recent survey I did, one of the owners asked me kind of like, "Hey, why do we still do this way?"
Oh, I
And
love that.
I was like, "Wait a minute. She's right."
Why
Because it's
do we
something
do this still?
why
Yeah.
do we do this? Right. And so that has been awesome because I love that they're just like another set of eyes looking at the
Yes.
business, looking for efficiencies and bringing up things that I'm like, I don't know, just because we've always done it. Why do
Oh,
we still do
is
that?
there anything
That's been
worse?
awesome.
Anything worse than when you ask somebody about, why we do what we do and they go, because that's the way we've always done it.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and for me, it's like, as I'm building the house, there's certain, when you're renovating a house, you're building a house, there's certain closets and rooms you don't go back into for a while. It's
right.
like, well, I built the linen closet. Like, why do I need to go back to the linen closet? And then, that's the same thing in my brand where there's some things like I built 4 years ago and like, yeah, that's just there.
Right.
And now, so I have some, my owners are becoming very sophisticated and very collaborative with us. We have such a strong relationship with them.
Hmm.
And so they're coming to me going like, "Hey, we might want to clean this closet out because like it still has like, it's got dust bunnies in it and
Yeah.
that would help us all." So it's been great and there's really not like contentious frustrations that they bring to us. It's all collaborative. So that's been a huge blessing and just hopefully speaks to the culture we've
Well, yeah.
created.
Well, kudos to you because if that's what they're saying, then what they're getting from you is somebody who's really open-minded and accepting their feedback, and they're not afraid to share with you their ideas. They're not being absolutely batted down with the suggestions. And
No
so
way.
that's how you build a strong culture in franchising. That explains it.
Yeah, and their intentions are all good.
Hmm.
Even if there's
Of course.
sometimes a delivery, I'm like, well, I don't know if I would have come at me that way. But
Right.
but the intentions are always good. And my favorite phrase is "you're right," because almost always I'm like, "You're right. This is difficult to use," or we don't have enough training on this," or "You know what? You're right. That's not
Yeah.
the experience that client should have had, or this should have been." So it's one of my favorite phrases to use, and sincerely, because typically whatever they're bringing to me, there's something in there I need to pay attention
Of
to.
course. What I've learned is if somebody comes across as really angry, they're really scared.
Yes.
It's just maybe they're not communicating it in such a way
Yes.
that's so smooth and eloquent.
Absolutely. And if you get fired up about the delivery, you miss the message.
Yeah.
You miss the real thing going on there. And so absolutely. And that's where like me coaching my HQ team of like how we want to show up for our owners. That's something I take super seriously. So you're so right. I never really thought about it exactly like that, but you nailed it. Absolutely.
Jamie, before we started recording, we were talking about these different models of your franchise. So let's start by if you share with the audience, what is the investment range of your franchise opportunity?
Yeah, so I have two models. So we don't require that our franchise owners have a dedicated studio, meaning they don't have to have a build out, their own brick and mortar that they have a long-term lease with. They do have to have obviously a place to have classes, and
Mhm.
it's not pop-up, it's not popcorning around. They do need to have what we call partner studios. So they can either go dedicated studio or partner studio, where the partner studios they're renting as needed. So they might have 5 classes a week from 8 to 9 p.m. at this location, 4 classes a week at this other location. So so there's 2 models, and the partner model is really great for folks who maybe run the business part-time, or they have a really interesting market where we don't know exactly where our clients are going to be coming from until we start that journey. And so that has been really successful for us to kind of market test in real time in different neighborhoods within their territory. So the investment for the partner model is about $70,000 all in with their, you know, all their working capital and their franchise fee. If they are going to have a dedicated space, it's going to be around 150.
Okay.
And so still not nuts, you know, still not nuts, because our studio build out, it's still only about a, you know, 1,100 square foot space that you need. It's still about, you know, the build out is minimal. You know, you need flooring, you need mirrors, you need some paint. So it's not, you know, we don't have a lot of, we have no equipment essentially. It's a pretty low lift from a build out perspective for most folks.
What percentage of your 38 franchises are partner model versus a dedicated studio?
Yeah, it's becoming more in the dedicated studio, but right now about 60% are partner model. Most just have the partner spaces. But my new owners that are coming in, especially in, we're kind of calling it first to market, my first units in bigger cities now, because we have a lot of white space still. I still have Denver. I have Raleigh, Durham. I have Miami. I have so many big, I mean, all of California. We have some amazing big cities that our ideal scenario is that they would have kind of a stronghold brick and mortar that's their dedicated space, and then also in their other units in the area operate in the partner model, so they have both. So my hybrid units are highest performing, and they're really fun to run because they have their home base, and then they also operate in other parts of their territory.
Okay. All right. So I'm about to open a partner model or dedicated studio. Where in the world am I going to find instructors?
You know, finding instructors is actually not the hardest part of launching this business. So we have a great system for, you know, obviously how they do a job posting and how they kind of screen their folks. These are folks that do need some dance experience. They need to, you know, be able to count to 8 and be able to create choreography. We do give them a lot of resources, but you know, former cheerleaders, former you know, folks who also have taught Zumba, or they have, you know, a cheer or dance background of any sort, but are typically, even just from a normal job posting that propagates across all the job platforms, we get a lot of applicants for the instructor role. And then if they're not getting as many applicants, then we're going to those college dance teams. We're going to those, you know, we're going to the drag performers in the area to see if this would be a good, you know, side job for them. We're going to, you know, any other studios that have adult dance programs as well. So we really have very rarely run into an issue where we just can't find instructors. Actually, I could say never, but you know, it's really there's a lot of folks out there that dance is a part of their life. Dance and fitness and movement and cheer are a part of their life. So we've been very fortunate on that.
Cool. All right. Well, what is the biggest challenge then?
You know, the biggest challenge are my folks who operate part-time. You know, as you know, part-time, sometimes you get those part-time results, right?
I always say part-time equals no time. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know there's some models where it works. Did not work for me. I tried it twice. I made 2 big runs at it, and I found part-time being no time.
So I started out the model with, I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, you probably know this is what you do. You know, oh yeah, you can run it part-time, no problem. Side bit, you know, that's
because
what I
did. Exactly.
That's what I did. Right. Absolutely. And so over time, you know, I have the data to support that my full-time owners, and I have this in my item 19 as well. My item 19, I have it based on, I have a column of, is this a part-time or a full-time? You know, how is this unit run? So I have that in my item 19, and I just, you know, they perform higher. They also just love their business more. You know, they're in it.
Sure.
And so, you know, now really the challenge is finding owners who are ready, willing, and able to do this full time, or they have the capital to have an operating principal or have someone that's really in the manager role. So that's really the biggest challenge, is just, you know, I have no shortage of franchise leads and people who are passionate and excited about DivaDance and they love it and they want to do it. But we have now gotten much more strict about what their commitment looks like, what their obligations to the business look like, and passion's just not enough. So it's hard, you know, especially folks watching this that are emerging brands. You need to grow, you need to sell franchises, we need the franchise fees. But I'm at a really, really important place where we got to have the right people. I mean, you're always at the place where you got to have the right people, but we really, that has been a big challenge, is just, you know, making sure we have the right folks. And if they can't give it their 100%, then do they have the capital to bring in a team?
And has that opportunity helped award more franchises by giving them the option of bringing in somebody to manage the business?
Yes, absolutely. It's actually made it more fun too. It's made it more fun for those new owners coming in. They feel like they have a buddy. They're not just in it by themselves.
Sure.
And we all know, like if managed the right way, 1+1=3. And so that's what we've been really, I don't want people who are self-employed. I want them to own a business.
Right.
And so, most of my owners don't teach their own classes. They hire instructors. And so I want owners to build a big, yummy business for themselves so that they can spend time with their family and they can have financial abundance. And so that's really, trying to find those folks that are the right fit for that. We've gotten good at it, but always more, looking forward to more.
Cool. Jami, what's been your biggest surprise since franchising 7 years ago?
The franchise community, the generosity, that has been a huge surprise because, I came out of the music business where most folks are not in it to help lift you up. It's just not
cutthroat, right?
Yeah, it's just not the culture of the business. And in franchising, I have made the most amazing, genuine, generous friendships and business relationships, and not just like the women helping each other. It's not just like, oh, the men know everybody and then they're going to pull us up. It's like everybody is so collaborative. So that's been a huge surprise. And it makes me want to be one of those people and be generous as well. So it's been really fun.
And you are.
I love to be, when young brands call me, I love talking to like fresh founders,
right.
Like a fresh one.
Yes.
I'm kind of mentoring one husband and wife now who have a really awesome concept where they do, balloons for special occasions, and a really, really cool concept. And just like, they're so bright-eyed and it's so fun to like, I don't want to diminish the spirit, but I want to help them, mold that clay. So that's been really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Tell me about your vision for your company. What's the long-term vision and how big is big for you think?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not just saying this, but I know we will have a global brand because dance is part of everyone's life across the world. Mm-hmm. And, even just my little toe dip into Mexico, one of the coolest moments of the last, 8 or 9 years has been teaching a DivaDance class in a room full of only Spanish speakers. That's been pretty cool.
Nice.
To just hear them talking about DivaDance in Spanish and, just seeing what we've created in this kind of implanted into another culture. Now Mexico's, very close to home, obviously. And it's but it's still a different country. It's still a different culture. It's still a different language. So that's been really fun. So my vision is that we replicate that again. We go to more countries. I am seeking, master partners for some of these other territories where it doesn't make sense for us to be the franchisor in those areas that are not our expertise in the market. So that would definitely be a goal we have. And, and transparently, if there comes a day where I'm not the person to be in the CEO seat and I'm really more suited in the founder seat, I'm absolutely looking forward to that day because it will mean that the company has gotten so, we've had such success that, even I am not the person to put the leash around it and tame it and grow it. So
good for you.
Yeah. So I look forward to that. And I'll always be the founder and I'll always be, we call me the head diva around here. But certainly if I'm not meant to be in that CEO seat at some point, definitely okay with that because it'll mean good things are happening. So global is the plan. We want to change lives and inspire confidence and build community everywhere.
Well, it means that you love your company so much that you're willing to put it before you.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I had that epiphany, I guess it was like back in 2006 when I was like, I love my company so much. I wanted to outlive me. I wanted to continue to grow and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And what happens then is you have that, because we all have that identity crisis as a founder, like you are DivaDance, right? And I was I9 Sports. But when you have that separation where you're willing to say, I don't need to be the CEO one day and I love my company and willing to do whatever it takes, there's actually a separation of identity between you and your company and it gives that space for your company to really grow, like you're giving it oxygen.
Yes. Well said. You're so right. And it's so true. And, obviously I sit so close to everything. And so when I get a chance to zoom out and like I look at other brands or I'm in the mix of other things where people give me, weigh in on our brand, like it's so refreshing. So you're right. Giving it oxygen, man, that's very well said.
Oh, thanks. what about when you're talking to prospective franchise owners? Clearly, Jami, you're not just trying to sell a franchise to everybody that walks through the door. When they're doing the due diligence, what advice or what warnings do you give them?
Yeah. Well, I talk about the times where it's hard, I mean, it's so easy to get people pumped up on our brand. That's so easy. But I don't want to stay there. I don't want to stay in that elevated state of like utopia, with them.
Yeah.
I really, I take them through some scenarios. That's something I've learned from some of my franchisor mentors about giving folks scenarios. Okay, this is these are real things that are going to happen to you in your business. You're going to have an instructor who an hour before class their grandma died for the 5th time, or you're gonna have things happen. Like, what are you gonna do? And I really talk to them about mindset. How are you gonna maintain your mindset around that?
Right.
And around, we call them disrupting events. I've read that in a few books about disrupting. When you have disrupting events, and then I also talk about their competing priorities. So I get to know them. I'm like, you've got a kid in high school. They've got homecoming. What's your plan when you're looking ahead and you have a recital that night for DivaDance, but it's your kid's homecoming? The answer doesn't have to be you tell your kid you can't be there. That's actually not the answer. The answer is, I'm going to have worked hard to make sure everything's in place so that I can be with my family,
Right.
And so I'm not looking for them to just be like, oh, DivaDance, that's my priority. That's my priority. Like, that's actually not what I want to prepare them for. I want to prepare them for, we need you to do the things in place so that you can have that family time, because that's the point of being a business owner. So that's really something I talk to them in the journey about, is those real scenarios and how this will show up in real life in their day-to-day. And that's pretty eye-opening for most of them. But the good news about it is that when they do have those scenarios, they're like, oh, you told me this was going to happen. Oh, you told me I would be at a conflicting thing, or I'd have a flake of an instructor that didn't show, or whatever, which is rare, but, or you told me that this would happen. So setting those expectations, so that's definitely something we do in that process.
Jami, that's great leadership. Helping your franchisees anticipate is one of the greatest marks of a leader. And in franchising, where we see the same things happen again and again and again, it's easy for us to observe, but to actually communicate that to our network at an early stage. That's the power of franchising, that somebody can come in brand new and you're helping them anticipate problems that are inevitable.
Well, and as a franchisor, we have a responsibility to do that, because if we just make it seem, I just read about a franchisor yesterday that was really, it hurt my heart, because they had just made all the mistakes of revenue promising, all the things you can't do. And some of the grievances that their franchisees had about them was just, they didn't tell me this would happen. They didn't tell me that. And I just feel a deep obligation to tell them the truth. And, here's what it's going to be like. And because I don't need to pump them up. I mean, we're a very exciting brand. We're very fun. We're very values driven. So I don't have to oversell that. That is inherent. It's not like our concept is listen, there's some awesome window cleaning companies out there, but not everybody's passionate about window cleaning. So they have a responsibility to get their prospects excited about that and everything else. But I don't have a passion problem. I want to make sure our people come in super confident that no matter what kind of happens, they can respond to it either mindset wise or skill set wise. I just feel a deep obligation to that.
Sweet. Earlier you mentioned having franchise mentors. I know you're part of a great mastermind group. I was wondering if maybe there's a piece of advice that you could share with the audience that you got from one of your mentors or part of your mastermind group.
Oh gosh, so many things. I mean, really about that transparency, getting buy-in. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned along the way is, instead of just rolling things out across the company, I'm very intentional and strategic about how we roll out things. And I'm always thinking about the mindset of folks. And so yes. I'll give you a quick example of something we're about to roll out. We're going to be integrating more AI support into our franchisees' experience. And so, I'm looking at scalability of my HQ and thinking about, hey, I have support people that are just answering quick questions for owners. Wouldn't it be great if we could use technology to do that so that I could spend my human resources on human things, human connection and coaching and guidance versus just article fetching, resource fetching. So that's something but before I roll that out, I want to make sure people are excited about it and that they're and they've kicked some of the tires and they've thought about it. So I have a little task force I formed. So that's something I learned from some mentors, is about the journey of getting the buy-in before we just roll things out. And so that I've absolutely learned. And, some of the mentors I have, they've learned that the hard way, where they haven't done it the right way. So that's been a very specific thing that I've learned.
Yeah. Well, in my experience starting out, I used to launch surprises, which people liked until they didn't, I found out.
Yeah, there's good surprises. And as we say with my daughters, there's no such thing as secrets, only surprises. But there's also not good surprises, too.
Also, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because we turned the corner at one point. In the beginning, the franchisees really loved the rolling out of surprises. But then as we got bigger, the importance of getting their buy-in became increasingly, obviously, more and more important. So
if
that's
I'm going to surprise, yeah, you're so right. If I'm going to surprise my owners, it better be surprise and delight.
Exactly.
And so I'll send them like, something in the mail. We did like a Galentine's thing where we were like, we send them little things here and there, or like we'll have little fun surprises at our meetings, but it's all surprise and delight, not surprise and stress out or surprise and overwhelm.
Right. People only like the surprises that they like.
Correct. Same. By the way, same.
Don't we all? If someone was interested in learning more about DivaDance, where would they go?
Yeah, so you can go to DivaDanceFranchise.com. We have an awesome landing page that, tells a little bit about the opportunity and shows, really, it's important to watch the videos, because when you see our videos and our social media content, it's very palpable, like the excitement that we have here. So I strongly recommend, that's where if someone's like, I want to punch my information in and I want to start the process and have a conversation. But, our socials, I take a deep pride in our social media content. It's all authentic. It's us. My personal socials are authentically me, for better or worse. Some of them are a little silly, but definitely, for someone looking to authentically start that franchising journey, DivaDanceFranchise.com is great. Otherwise, follow us on everything, TikTok, all the places.
Cool. Jami, I love your energy. You have incredible energy. I wrote down Jami Fearless. Like you, I feel you are just a fearless leader, and your franchisees are so fortunate to have you leading the brand.
Thank you so much. Listen, it's awesome. And people like you, I really appreciate this conversation. The generosity within the franchise family is so fun. And I'm just delighted to be part of that.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, speaking of the generous franchise community, I always finish the podcast with a franchise tip jar because the community is being so generous. Maybe there's a piece of advice. Would you be willing to share if an entrepreneur was looking to franchise their concept before they jumped in? Maybe there would be a tip or trick that you would suggest?
Well, absolutely. You got to get those unit economics right. We all know that, but more specifically, having that standard chart of accounts, this is very tactical, but I think that that's actually important. Having that standard chart of accounts, for those listening that may not know what that is, it's where all your expenses are categorized the same across the company so that you can do comparison. That's something that I didn't start off with that I wish I had. And so that's a big one. So, definitely having like all your accounts, even if you're like, well, I'm not really like a big numbers person, you better become a numbers person. That's a huge piece of advice. I'm very marketing, branding oriented, but I have become a numbers person because numbers give me power. They give me that frame of reference. The only second thing, a bonus tip I'll give, is that for those of you starting out your first or second franchisee, you're going to want to course correct a lot in real time and offer corrections. But I just talked to a new franchisor the other day, and I told her, take a beat. Whenever you have like a little piece of feedback for your brand new owner, your first or second or third owner, take a beat versus like ad hoc giving them all your feedback in real time. That's something that I learned. My first couple of owners, I think I overcorrected, and I we had a great relationship, but I still was constantly, because I had a deficit in the materials I had given them. Like I was just starting. And so that's another little like bonus tip, to just, take a beat before you correct your brand new owners.
That is fantastic advice. Jami, thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you all the continued success. I'm glad we finally met.
Oh my gosh, so fun. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.